Say 1 minute, everybody.
1 minute, everybody.
Okay, actually, less than a minute.
Less than a minute. Hi.
All
Hi.
right.
Hi.
All right, now we should be able to stop this.
Hi.
You see
Look at all the people watching.
Can you see everybody? You want to wave? Well, hey everybody, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Sienna just wanted to join in here at the beginning. Say hi. All right. Well, we can get started. One more. You want to say good night?
Yeah, it's
Good
bedtime.
night.
Right.
All right.
Right. Good night, everyone.
Good night, Sienna.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining in. We're really excited just to share. Hopefully it's not reverbing a lot here.
You're good.
Okay, cool. We got Donnell, my mother-in-law, in here helping with letting people in and making sure the sound is okay. But thanks everybody for joining. We just, these are something we feel like we want to do every 2 years or so, just to kind of share. It's difficult in a ministry like this to share the whole thing, and it's kind of a complicated ministry. And so just getting an opportunity to share it kind of here's start to finish, it's just really helpful. So thank you for joining. We're recording this and there's a lot of people who couldn't make it that will check that out, but I'm going to go ahead and share screen and share some of the slides that I've got to share. So just give me 1 second while I get that all geared up here. Okay, and so now you should be able to see the slide, the welcome slide there. So yeah, I just wanted to walk through this. Bree will be back in a few minutes, but wanted to share what we're up to. Also wanted to mention that on our website, we've got the page now that you can go on called The Night of Vision, and it's got, the link to this. We'll have the recording as well posted up here. And then you can also see that there's resources there. There's videos that we just thought would be relevant for you that you can check out, recap videos of some of our events. There's an interview with a missionary family just to kind of get some, kind of paint a picture of what it is. What it's like to be on the field. So just a couple things there that you might find interesting, but let's go ahead and move forward here. So I wanted to start with just kind of a roadmap of what I plan to talk about tonight. I'm going to start with the why. We're going to basically share why it is what we do and how we fit into church planting. We're going to talk about some of the realities of TCKs and MKs. And then we're going to talk about the what. We're going to talk about our Ethnos 360 program and kind of share how that's coming along. Some of you have heard us talk about that for years, and it's actually finally going. And so we want to share about it. And then just want to share a little about engagement and how we can all play a part. So bear with me. There is a decent amount of content. I'll try and finish quick, but again, thank you for being willing to listen and hear it out kind of in more than just a little quick soundbite. So first I'm going to start with the why. As part of the church, it's our calling to go and make disciples and teach them to obey and obey Christ. And that's called the Great Commission. That's something that, as Jesus was ascending, right before he ascended into heaven, we have what we call the Great Commission. And it's right here in Matthew 28 and 18 through 20. It says, "Then Jesus came and said, 'All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age.'" And Christ, we know, came to create a way for us to be redeemed. We were all lost, and Christ came to bear our punishment. But the thing is, people have to know that. And the Great Commission, it's not just this whole missions thing like going overseas. It's also your neighbor. It's both. And sometimes we can get caught up in just local or just, going overseas, and it's both. It's everyone in our life, including those that are still waiting to hear. And that's the church's role in the Great Commission. We are the church, and that's why it's our role. And right now in the world, we have, it's actually closer to 7,000 languages in the world. And those are unique languages, people groups, which is they have a common heritage consisting of a shared language, culture, and ancestry. So there's a lot. But of that, there's still 2,500 languages that are still completely unreached. And when we say that, we mean no gospel, no Bible, no church, no verse, nothing in that language, period. So we still have a long ways to go as far as the church, but we can be encouraged, I believe, that we know, even though this is a tough call and it's a responsibility we still have a long way to go with, there's in Revelation, I get really encouraged by this. In chapter 7, we hear, after this I looked, and before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, tongue, people, and language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb. They were wearing white robes and were holding palm branches in their hand, and they cried out in a loud voice, "Salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne, to the Lamb." And I think that's so encouraging, because we get to know that it will happen, that this is God's thing, and we get to simply just be a part of it. And that's the encouragement. I almost would even say it's like the caffeine to go and do these things, because we know where it's going. We just get to be a part of it, which is awesome. It also reminds me of Paul in Romans in chapter 10, when he says, "How then can they call on the one who they have not believed in? And how can they believe in the one whom they have not heard? And how can they hear without someone preaching to them? And how can anyone preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring the good news." And again, this is speaking about our neighbor and our family, but it is also speaking about those who are still waiting to hear. And we can know that there's still those that are completely isolated from the gospel right now. And so it's our role as a church to be a part of that. So this is the foundational reason why Bree and I want to be involved with this. We'll get into about our organization, Ethnos 360, because that is definitely why they exist as well. But I wanted to share just a little bit about our journey, just to kind of give some background. Bree grew up on the mission field. Her parents are here on the call. They were over in Papua New Guinea. And Bree grew up there from 2 to 18, and just a few home assignments in the middle of that. But she was on the field. I grew up in Northern California, got to hang out with Josh Jonas and all of that up in California. And so I grew up kind of in that Bay Area, California area. And we both had passions for youth ministry, but we went to a place called Joshua Wilderness Institute, which is up at Hume Lake up in Northern California. And it was a 1-year gap program. And they had a speaker that came for a full week. And he was a missionary with Ethnos 360. Well, at the time, New Tribes Mission. And he laid out, first of all, what I've just been talking about, which is that there are still people waiting to hear and have nobody going. And I didn't know that. And so it was kind of eye-opening. And then he explained how this whole thing looks, church planting in a place like that. And it was mind-blowing. And so I knew, and so did Bree, that we have a passion for youth ministry, but we have to be a part of that somehow. There's just not people, there's people waiting in line for roles here in the US, at churches, and there's nothing wrong with that at all, but there's nobody going, and we wanted to be a part of that in some way. And that's what kind of started us. And then we started dating after Joshua, and we walked through Bree's transition from being on the field in Papua New Guinea, which is a very, very different culture, just trust me, and coming to the US. And it was such a challenge for her. And as we were dating and even early in marriage and walking through it, we really struggled to understand some of the things she was walking through. And as we kind of just kept working at it, we did find resources. We did find some things that really made a huge difference. And so for us, we realized man, if there was people helping other MKs walk through that and normalize the experience, because a lot of it was just she thought something was wrong with her because she didn't know why she didn't relate to girls her age, and she didn't, it was a challenge for her and she didn't know why, and we started to realize why, and so we decided we want to be a part of helping other MKs go through that experience, because we can't eliminate it, but go through it in a way in which we're able to help them. And that's where it really started. So we got to work at a church for full time up in Northern California for a good chunk of time. And then we went into, it was time to start. And so we went into training 2010. And we graduated from there in 13, and then got to start our work with Ethnos 360 there in 2015. So Ethnos 360 has been around for almost 76 or almost 77 years. Excuse me. They started back in 1946. And their goal is to a thriving church for every people. So every ethne from around the world. So that is the goal of Ethnos 360. They are not a church. They are a entity, a supporting entity to help the local church send, create infrastructure in order for the local church to send. So that is what they exist to do. I wanted to mention just why it's complicated. So just in a nutshell, Ethnos 360 started as New Tribes Mission, and it was a U.S. leadership that started and sent people out, and over the years it grew and grew, and soon Brazil was wanting to send people, and South Korea wanted to send people, and England wanted to send people. So they started sending people. But over time, then you started having all these international entities, but we're all Ethnos 360 with a headquarters in Florida. And it was starting to become challenging from the cultural standpoint of just how that all works. So it was a chunk of years ago, maybe 10 years or something like that. We actually broke into what's called the Global Partners. And so now when we say Ethnos 360, we're just referring to the US sent families. So now every sending entity became their own organization, and then we have a partnership together to work to make it, to help it make it work. So what's kind of cool is our families on the field. Let's say there's 5 families in this tribal work. Half of them may be US families, but then some of them will be from Brazil, and some of them will be from South Korea. They'll have partners from around the world. So it truly is a global network, and it's very cool. It's also very challenging and complicated. I wanted to share a little bit about the church planting side of how this all works. So we're talking about reaching the least reached, the ones that are still waiting. And a lot of those that are still waiting are in places that are very isolated and remote, tribal and undeveloped. And so it takes a lot to send people into that. Example, Papua New Guinea has over 800 unique people groups, unrelated people groups. And so there's just a lot there in specific places like that. But just to walk you through a couple of what it looks like, what we're trying to accomplish. First step is being invited and moving into a tribe. And so that isn't something we would force on any places. So we do surveys and look for an opening to be able to go, and an invite to be able to have families move into the tribe. The next is learning language and culture. And that is a very important step. And it can take 2 to 5, sometimes even longer, to be able to learn the language, learn the culture. Often you have to learn a trade language, which isn't a full language, but it's there to help connect. So often you have to learn that, and then in order to then go and learn the full language that you're there for. But you also have to learn the culture, and because they're vastly different from ours, we have to understand where they're coming from. Step 3 is to teach the Bible, and we choose chronological because it helps, especially with the vast cultural differences. It helps lay it all out. A lot of people in the US culture, even if they're unchurched, they at least have heard a lot of those pieces, and they understand that the world is a globe, and there's animals like lambs. That's not necessarily a given when you're in a tribal setting. They may not even know that. They may not know. So you have to help walk through it chronologically so they can understand how it all fits together. The 4th step is to create a written language and an alphabet, which doesn't have to happen all the time, but often there isn't a written language in that culture. And so we use phonetics and actually learn the language and then create a written language that they can then learn. And that leads to step 5, which is teach literacy, which is to take that new written language and teach it so that they can actually read and write in that language. Which leads to step 6, which is to disciple the new believers and the church until there is a mature, self-functioning church, indigenous church. And so our goal isn't to make Western churches, not that I'm not saying that's a problem. I'm just saying that's not necessarily the goal. The goal is to bring them to the word and let that transform them. And so a lot of those churches will look more like Acts churches, and it's pretty cool to see. And then we translate the Bible into their heart language for the first time in history. So we take that new language, the written language, we translate the word into that, and so that they're able to read and write in there and read the scriptures for the first time. And then that leads to step 8, which the Bible teaches, is to then go out, and they continue to go on and even go to neighboring people groups. So that's what it all looks like. And it's quite the thing. It can take 25 to 50 years to get through that process easily. So it's a big investment for our families, but that is what we're called to do. And so I always kind of compare it in my mind to like a football team. I'm here in Colorado now, and I'm still searching, to be honest, for a team because it was a rough year for Broncos. But I'm kind of a Broncos fan-ish. But anyways, forgive me, Josh, I know. But I just wanted to mention how I connect those. And one is, when you think of a football team, you often will think of the quarterback and the running back. You know, those guys make the touchdowns. The wide receivers, they make the money. They also make the touchdowns. They're the jerseys we tend to buy, which is fine. But there's also an incredible amount of guys on that field that have roles that are vital to those other guys, to those jerseys we wear. So there's the guys that play, on the line, and they literally just block for the wide receivers and the runners. And that's all they do. They may not touch the football the entire game, maybe even not the whole season, but yet they're vital to it. And I always love that analogy because it reminds me of how this whole church planting thing works, especially in these contexts. So it takes a large team to reach these tribal locations. And actually it takes around 6 support missionaries that are doing things that are in support of the tribal missionaries to keep families in the tribe. And I think it's really important. So when you're thinking, what does that look like? We've got doctors that serve on fields. We've got pilots that are flying the families in and out of the tribe. We've got government reps. My in-laws here, Donnell and Steve, they actually served in that way for 5 or 6 years. We've got supply buyers that are buying the supplies that they've been then put on helicopters that go into the tribe because they can't get their own supplies. So we've got people in the US that are teaching and training the next generation of missionaries. We've got missionary teachers that are over there teaching the MKs, the missionary kids. So there's a whole range of, we've got IT, we've got construction, all kinds of people that it takes to be able to make this all come together. And that leads us to what we do. Our role is it takes healthy families to be in this situation. And so our role is to support our missionary families, not just the ones on the field, but within the whole organization. And because the families, the mom, the dad, and the kids are all heavily involved with this. And it's our privilege to get to be a part of that and to help them be in a healthy position. Because if the family is not healthy, then the family suffers. And the ministry then suffers, and then the unreached remain unreached. And I want to make one thing clear. We aren't looking to sacrifice the family for the sake of the gospel. We believe we sacrifice as a family, and that's a very big difference. And so we work with families to be able to walk those difficult lines sometimes and help them understand. I got Bree back in here.
Hi. Yeah, I was gonna say, scoop me in.
Yep. So here's kind of what it looks like within Ethnos 360 when we talk about our MKs. We actually have over 1,100 MKs just to age 22. So that represents over 500 families spread around the globe, and a lot of homeschool. It's like 75% homeschool, just because there's not a school for them to attend. But we have families living in a lot of different environments. So we've got, when we talk about who are MKs, we've got some that what we're describing is in the tribe, isolated. And then we've got some that are in the US going to public school as their parents serve at one of our US facilities. So we have a huge range of what it looks like. We've got kids in large cities like Dakar. So life looks very different for them. So it's a range. We have families that are in different, like they're on home assignment for a year. So life can look very different from one MK to the next. We have a lot of them. And so I want to kind of get into just a little bit of what we're calling the MK dynamics, just kind of giving you some baseline information. And this is the type of thing that we actually teach our families and our MKs as well, to help give a baseline of understanding of what's going on and why is this a challenge to give attention to, I should say. And so a term we want to give you guys is called third culture kids, or TCK, you might hear. And it's actually an umbrella term. So when we say TCK, or third culture kid, that encompasses missionary kids, but it also encompasses a lot of military kids that travel around, like my mother, who went overseas to Germany and different places cross-culturally. There's business families that are living overseas. There's diplomats and education industry and oil. There's a lot of different families that are in a similar boat. And so this umbrella term would cover all of that, including MKs. And it started back in the 50s, where there was some sociologists that went over after World War II, when we kind of had this expat explosion. A lot of families went overseas. And so these guys went to study the family, or these adults that are now living in different places around the world. And when they were there, one of the things that stood out even more to them was the kids and the uniqueness of the kids' lives there and who they kind of were. And so there was the beginning of it. And then in the 70s, Pollock came through and really kind of took it to the next level and studied it and presented ways for us to understand it. So that's where it kind of comes from. Third culture, when we talk about that, I want to explain it with this picture here. So you have, and it's not a perfect model, but it kind of helps give a picture of how it works. So if you have on the left side, you have the passport culture. That would represent often for these kids, their parents' home. And some would feel like, yeah, it's mine too. Or some would be like, I've never even been there, or I don't feel like I'm connected to there. On the right side, you have the host culture, and it could be more than one. They could move to multiple places, but it's like an adopted home. When they come in there, they begin to see it as part of them. And in those places, so in the passport culture, there's often a pressure to fit in, sometimes internally or externally. People, you might feel like, hey, this is my passport culture. I should know what the difference between a debit card and credit card and how to get a driver's license. In the host culture, there's a pressure to learn. Like, I'm here to learn, and I should learn all this stuff. So there's some of the pressures there. In the third culture community, and where that term really comes together, is where there's a sense of belonging in that in-betweenness. So a lot of our TCKs will feel like they belong in this third culture community just because you understand how I feel kind of part of this culture and kind of part of that culture, but not wholly in either. I don't belong to either, but I just feel parts of each. And I don't belong, I'm kind of rootless. And that feeling is what they come together on. And so it's this community and feeling understood. So I wanted to mention one other thing too as well. One of the things that we've been helping our families and our MKs understand, that MK is not, when we say TCK or MK, we're not saying this is your identity to where is your pin, like I'm a TCK or I'm an MK and that's who I am. And it's just a dynamic or a reality that it's something of a lived experience that they need to understand, because it does impact them. So it's not an identity to be stuck with, but it's just a reality to understand and to process and give due attention to. Because if you do that, then you can have it be a healthy thing for you. If you don't, it can often become a negative. So we really try and help them understand, because sometimes they can really just get the label, like I'm a TCK or I'm an MK, and we don't really want that. What we want is them just to understand, and what we want parents to understand is just a dynamic. I have my own dynamics. I grew up in Northern California. It was very influential, and I've had to learn that was part of my upbringing and understand that about me. So everybody has dynamics that needs attention, that impacts their lives. And so that's all we're referring to. And the goal is to mitigate those challenges that come with it and cultivate the benefits. And one thing I want to mention was the difference between a young person going cross-cultural, transitioning across cultures, versus an adult. When I'm with our families, with our MKs, I often do a little illustration. With the MKs, I'll have two colored pieces of clay. I'll have a yellow and a blue. And what it will be is I'll start adding blue to the yellow, and pretty soon it'll even start kind of turning green a little bit, but it becomes this mixed thing that you can't pull apart. Whereas with an adult, I compare it to, I have blue M&Ms and red M&Ms. If you grew up in one culture, your cup's going to look very blue. And what that just means is, like, you understand. For me, I understood America. I understood why we did fireworks on 4th of July. I understood the cultural norms. It was normal to me. I may not like the culture, but I understand it and feel comfortable in it. And then when you start adding, let's say I move to Papua New Guinea, we'll represent that with yellow. You start adding, your cup will never be the same. And we call it reverse culture shock. When they go back to America, they're going to feel different and not relate to their peers anymore at the same level. But they can painstakingly kind of pull out and say, well, I reacted this way because of my PNG life, or I react this way because of my time in America. Where it's different as an MK, when they're growing up, it's more like clay, and it's really hard to pull that apart. And why? Because kids, their brains are completely developing during that stage. So between the ages of 5 and 20, your brain, and beyond, but that is a dramatic time where your brain is maturing in size, in mass, but also in maturity. And when you go through life experiences through those ages, you're pulling those experiences, and they're becoming core value, almost identity level things. And so it's very impactful for them on field, whereas their parents, it's impactful, but they can still kind of, and where it just comes together is understanding yourself, understanding your story. And that's why it's a little bit more challenging for an MK, and we want to help them with that. Two important realities that we wanted to cover. There's many, but I just wanted to hit these two: high mobility and cross-cultural lifestyle. So high mobility is actually, I'm gonna go back one. So we have found that MKs have on average 9 major moves before they're 18. And so when we talk about that, we're talking about like cross-cultural moves, back and forth on home assignments. That's, we actually classify that as chronic cycles of mobility. So that's significant when you're saying that many goodbyes and hellos and new life here, leaving your old life. And the truth is, with high mobility comes loss, and with loss comes grief. And both are important. Some can be hidden, like you don't even, others won't ever even know about it. Maybe your pet that you left at home or back in this country. Most people don't even know about it, but it's important we realize. And there's a quote that I really like. It's called, it says, "The reality of transition, there is a loss even when there is ultimate gain. No matter how much we anticipate the future is good, we almost always leave something of value behind as well." So even good transitions, even times that we are excited about, still are, they come with grief and loss as well. Now, it's not all bad. High mobility is actually something I think is a huge benefit to our MKs. So seeing many parts of the world, vacationing in some of them beautiful and interesting places, often having very close bonds with family because they do these transitions together usually, having unique global and missional perspectives, friends literally around the world, knowing how to make quick starts because you've made so many. Numerous life experiences and stories, can be adaptable, flexible, resourceful, sometimes multilingual. Sometimes they hate being adaptable, but they just can do it because they've had to do it so many times. And And then we move on to cross-cultural lifestyle. And the one I want to hit here is what we call the hidden immigrant. And if you follow this chart here, we're going to start in the upper left. So mirror would be what I felt like growing up in America. I thought alike, I understood the culture, and I looked alike. Nobody questioned that I was from that culture. Then if you go one to the right, that's adopted. Bree, that would be like her experience in PNG in Papua New Guinea. She looked very different. Everyone could immediately tell she was not from there. However, over time, she began to feel more comfortable with the culture and feel a part of it. And vice versa, people started to feel like, hey, she gets it. Even though they can tell she's not from here, she gets it. So we call that adopted. One below that is foreigner. And that's if somebody who obviously doesn't look like they're from here and they don't think or know how to act here. And so a foreigner, pretty, straight and forward there. But for me, when I see a foreigner, I often have a gut reaction of empathy or compassion. Like, how can I help you? So that's my natural response. With hidden immigrant, this other box on the bottom left, it's often how our MKs feel, especially like when they come back to the US for college or whenever they come back. Coming back to their passport culture, because you know what? Most people would never know that they aren't from here because they look American. They look like they're from the culture. However, often they do not think or feel anything like the culture here. And there can be internal and external feelings there. Like I said earlier, like I should know these things. This is my passport culture after all. But others, there's some external pressures too, because others, when I said for foreigner, I have a gut response of compassion. Unfortunately, sometimes my gut response, if I don't understand that someone's not from here, but they look like they are, my gut response is to be frustration. Like who taught you how to, fill up your tank? Like where were your parents? And there's a gut response, right? Of like, because my mind's not going, you're not from here. And so I'm sorry, you are from here. And so that can be a challenge for our MKs. And the last couple things here is one is some relational dynamics I wanted to share with you guys. TCKs, and again, this is generalities here. So this isn't, I'm not putting a label on Bree here. TCKs can tend to contextualize stories by a place. Versus monocultural North Americans tend to contextualize stories by time. And so why is this? Well, the brain, it has a catalog system for memory, right? Well, when I grew up, my place, my geographic location stayed the same. And so for my brain, when I'm thinking about stories from my past, I don't think about locations. I think about, well, I was in 3rd grade or I was 10. So I think about the timing. Whereas a TCK, their place changed all the time. So their brain categorized their memories by what location they were in. When I was in Singapore, when I was in London.
Come across a little like braggy. Oh,
right.
When I lived in, another country, like it comes across a little arrogant.
Well, that's a genuine thing. Yeah.
Not intentionally.
Yeah. It's genuine. But at the same time, someone doesn't understand that, like that hidden immigrant thing. They're going, why are you always just showing off and telling about all the places you've been? And it can cause division in the relationship building process. And then one other is TCKs generally need depth for close relationships, whereas monoculturals tend to need time for close relationships. And why? Well, because with that high mobility, TCKs tend to be either they're leaving or their circle is leaving, people in their lives are leaving. So there's an internal time clock, and many wouldn't even be able to put this into words, but they have an internal time clock that's saying, we have to go deep now because I don't know how long I'm going to get to have you in my life. For me, completely different. I grew up in a high school with 600 just in my grade. And so I had to weed out people and the people stayed the same from kindergarten all the way through. And so the way a monocultural tends to make friends is I'm just going to see who I end up hanging out with more often. So it ended up being the guys from my soccer team or in my class or the people that are just around me often. And that's who become my close friends. Why? Because that's just who my friends ended up being. So there's not a time clock in my mind of I need to hurry up and make deep friendships.
I'd say the time clock also comes in with like like getting itchy feet. Like a lot of MKs will, after a couple years, start feeling like, okay, it's time to move. Like it's time to move on from this place, or start feeling discontented where they're at, because they crave the new experiences, or they crave, just the normalcy of moving all the time. And so when they are in a place for a long time, we call it itchy feet.
Yeah. And so there's definitely benefits of cross-cultural lifestyle as well. So we've been talking about the challenges, but here are some benefits. One, awareness that there could be more than one way to do this or to see the same things. Many positives from upbringing that cannot be bought or obtained in adulthood. Becoming adaptable and resourceful, language acquisition, enjoy diversity, cross-cultural skills, and cross-cultural bridges. Many love our MKs will often do great working with international students just naturally for that reason.
Or just in the church, having seen what different bodies of Christ look like around the world as well. Like I feel like in America, there's obviously different ways of worship and different, denominations and everything, but a TCK will come having seen how an African village worships God, and they just have this different perspective on what the church looks like globally. And that's like a huge benefit too, to the US church.
Yep. And I'm going to speed up a little bit here. Two important realities for MK specifically. Again, there's more, but when we talked about TCK, that's umbrella. So now let's bring it down to more specifically MKs. And two of them that we like to help MKs understand. One is the fishbowl and the other is perfectionism. And the fishbowl is this concept that everybody knows me. When they're on the field, everybody in the village, it's the little white girl. They always watch and it's the spectacle. And so there's an idea of I'm always being watched. And then even on home assignment, they often go from church to church and get up on stage, and they'll have people say, oh, I've been praying for you and your broken arm. And this MK would be like, and your name is, and that's not a bad thing, but it can be a challenge when you just feel like everyone knows me and I don't even know them. So we want to help them understand that dynamic. The other is perfectionism. And a lot of what I just referred to is in that kind of glass house or fishbowl can lead to perfectionism. And it's a big thing that we see a lot in our MKs who just, they feel this pressure to be perfect. And why? Well, because there's realities like, if I mess up, it's going to affect my parents' ministry. Is that true? Well, maybe. So the pressure might be real, but it's not something a kid should really have to deal with. And so helping them understand that. And if that's not dealt with, it kind of like a cancer can really start to eat at them. Perfectionism is a really rough thing. So those are two things that we like to work with our MKs on. Some of the benefits of that MK experience, though, seeing God at work like few get to, getting to be a part of what God is doing from an early age, that is really cool. Having people praying for you and wanting to help and live in community with believers. Those are all things I didn't always get. And so it's really cool that they get to do that.
And one other aspect with Ethnos 360 being like tribal church planting is these kids go into these tribal locations with their parents, watch their parents start from ground zero all the way to witnessing a baby church born. And it is such a unique experience that these MKs have that is such a benefit.
Absolutely. So I know that was a lot of information, and we spend a whole week on some of these topics. So I know it was a lot, but I just want to give you some of the things that we like to work with our MKs, and just wanted you to have a little bit of that, of what it is we even talk about. So then it leads to what in the world does this even look like? What does working with missionary kids and families look like? And so I wanted to share about our new program. We've been really excited, and some of you have been hearing about our new program and the launches for the last few years. Really what happened was during COVID, we were able to pause because we had many, canceled trips,
All the
which
kids.
opened up time and resources. So our team was able to come together and put everything on the table. And there was many things that we were struggling with going, we're missing the mark for this reason and that. And so it gave us an opportunity to put everything on the table during COVID and say, all right, what should we do? How can we actually, what would most benefit these families, these MKs? And we did a bunch of surveys out to the MKs and families. And the fruit of all of that was this new program. So we're really excited about it. We think it's going to be a lot more beneficial to our families. So we launched the official first thing in July of 21. That was kind of our initial thing. And then we had a second phase that launched of January of this year where we added a bunch more components. And so we're really excited about it. I want to share with you guys what that's coming, how that's coming together. First, the purpose statement: we exist to provide resources to our Ethnos care and resources to our Ethnos 360 missionary kids and their parents to better equip them for the unique dimensions of cross-cultural ministry and family life. Our passion is to help cultivate healthy families, enabling them to fulfill their role in establishing Indigenous churches. That's why we exist. We have a new program that is actually opt-in based. So they actually have to register into the program. So remember, that's that 500 families, we're asking them to actually register. And there's reasons for it. There's reasons why I wish we didn't have to do that. But here's why. Like, we have an HR system, just like any organization or company. We can see who our members are, the missionaries, and their parents are there, and then their kids are listed. However, that information in that HR system is there for other purposes. It's there for healthcare and things like that. It's not for other reasons. And so HIPAA laws actually prohibit us from using that information even for care purposes. So as an example, if I were to look up a kid, see his birthday, and send a birthday card, that's actually a HIPAA law issue, a violation. So, because that birth date was only given for the reason of healthcare and things like that. So what we've gone to with this registration process is we've built our own database and all that. So when families register, they're giving permission-based information with the ability and the knowledge that we will use that for these care purposes. So the registration process is actually pretty important, and this has been a really big part of this whole thing. We kind of work around 4 main cornerstones, and I wanted to share more about that, but I'll come back to it. But just to name them, it's care. That's kind of your traditional idea of what member care would look like: visits and providing just support. Central is our concept of we want to give resources to our families, but not just here's a list of websites or books. We know our families are incredibly busy, and so our goal is to actually condense them down from a fire hose to a drinking hose, and often create those resources so it's easier to consume. Connection is that we believe it's really vital that we have relationship with the families, with the MKs. So we want to connect over the years many times, and so connection is important. Yeah, even while on the field. And then community. Our isolation is a real challenge for our families. We have families that are in the tribe on their own and don't have friends for their kids. That is a thing that we want to help alleviate by creating platforms that help our families to build community for their kids. Yeah. So we'll come back to some of that, but wanted to introduce you to our team. So first we have up there Steve and Becky Swope. They're up in Indiana. Fantastic, amazing. They do a lot of work and are incredible. Bree and I are there. We're in Colorado Springs. I'm the director, and Bree is our amazing media coordinator. She does media queen, as she likes to be called. She does incredible work. Yeah, I mean,
that's my job title.
Yeah, she does all kinds of stuff. So any of the graphics you see, she's done, but
He's altered some of them. And
I
I'm
have
noticing
altered a few.
That you have.
And then we have Donnell Trotstrud, who is laughing now because she knows that's true. She is on our team as well, and she is our amazing admin. There's a lot of admin now when it comes to the database with the registrations and all of that, and it's over many of our heads, and she keeps track of all of that and helps work through all of the CRMs and all of that. So amazing help. Thank you, Donnell. We have Christy Jansma. She is in Washington. Oh, and I forgot, Donnell's up in Idaho. We have Christy in Washington, and she's the assistant for Becky and does a lot of different work with the connection piece, sending a lot of cards out, a lot of connection
Baby
points.
bibs.
Baby bibs. We send baby bibs when our family has a new kid, things like that. And then we newly have Holly Dick. She joined our team just recently. And she is another assistant, and she does a lot of our care. So she gets our home assignment lists of all our home assignment families, and she connects with them on a regular basis and keeps them updated and just loved on. She's amazing. So that's our team. We definitely need to grow. So we're praying for more people, but that's who we have right now.
We can't keep up with the amount of work that we need to do.
Yeah.
We need
So
more people on
we're
our
definitely
team.
praying for our team to expand. Here's how I want to do. I want to split up with MKs and parents. So I wanted to share a little bit about kind of just what we offer to our MKs. So we are event driven. We have a lot of events. We have retreats that are, and this year we've got 2 coming up in June, and they're going to be at our training center. And we do a high school one that is a 3-day, and then we do a young adult, which is 18 to 26, which is another 3-day event. And so we're really excited about this June. We've got full house. We are already pretty much already at our caps on numbers, and so it's going to be great. So those are something we offer every summer for our MKs that are stateside. We also promote other events, like there's a snow camp and there's post-college retreats that we don't facilitate, but we promote because we're connected with them, and sometimes we'll even help staff them. And another one is reentry programs. We don't run one ourselves, but we know of the 3 in the States that we highly recommend, and we help staff them, and we'll even give grants. Reentry programs are incredible. Honestly, it's probably my favorite 2 weeks of the year. So we go out to California and help with one out there. And it's an incredible opportunity because these are MKs that literally just came off the field within days or weeks, and they're moving to the US. And so we get 2 weeks with them to help understand the culture and just give them the building blocks to prepare for what's coming for them.
I didn't see this video.
Yeah. And then we can go on field. We'll do transition conferences. We'll do spiritual emphasis weeks on field with our families. We'll also do events stateside at our centers
We're
there.
getting more and more requests as well for our team to come and run transition seminars in different countries we've not even had the opportunity to go to yet. So what's the one in Africa?
Senegal.
Senegal,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
right. There's Senegal, and then Mexico, and all kinds of countries.
Yeah, so that's another way we get to help. And then we have, for our resources, we have a website now that we're super excited about. Our website is kind of a one-stop shop for all of our resources. Again, we try not to just have lists of things. We try and give them specific, condensed down, easy to consume content and resources. And we're creating stuff a lot. We've got workshops, and I'll get into that. So we have articles and all kinds of things. So that's really exciting. What we've now launched as part of our second phase is we've got a podcast for our families now called Base Camp. That's for families, for MKs. Like one episode's about, getting it, how to find a job. And another one is how parents can help with their homeschooling. So it's an array of topics. And then we have a workshop element now called Outfitter, where we provide quarterly these workshops that they can be and watch live and then watch on demand afterwards. We also do a debrief program for our MKs. Our MKs can come to a 2.5-day debrief, and that's to help them process their story. And so that's a really exciting thing that we just launched actually this April. It is April, so this month.
It's fascinating though how historically these missionary families have had no opportunity to be debriefed after raising their entire family in another culture. Like you go on a 2-week missions trip and you have debriefing time, and yet for long-term missionaries there hasn't been historically a lot of opportunity for them to process all the things that they've gone through living overseas in another culture, and another, a lot of there's even traumatic events that happen that they just have never talked about or spoken of, and they carry it around as if it's normal. But that's something that's really exciting that we're offering now, is these debriefing. It can be individual or family, and so that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. And then we also, for community, like we're referring to helping with the isolation, we've launched one and we're getting ready to launch the other. So Trailmates is what we launched already. And that's I think pen pal program, but for elementary ages. So we think a MK that's on the field in a tribe, but through WhatsApp has a small group of other MKs from around the world that they can connect with regularly. And we send prompts, and parents, it runs through the parents. It's something that is really helpful for the whole family, but that's something we're really excited about and getting off the ground. And then we're looking for the teens to launch in early 2024, January or February. We're looking to launch something called MKC Live, which think virtual youth group mixed with a late night show. So it's going to be high energy, engaging, fun, and then small groups, and it's going to be great. So we're looking to get that launched here really soon. So again, families all around on the field. For parents, we offer that website as well, but it's like a learning platform. So we now teach 8 hours in the training on MK Care, which is really cool that we were able to get that going. Not us, but like that the training program was open to that. And so we've launched that. And so they can get training before they go on field. But often they don't even have kids yet at that stage. And so we're taking those recordings, those classes, and making them available on demand. So that, and making this website a learning platform so they can come back even in 10 years now that their kid's a teenager and can rewatch it. And so we're really excited about the website being more than just a list of things for them to read, but they have the same website. They have articles and guides, the podcast. We also have a magazine that we've started. Bree, you want to show? This has been really cool. We just launched this last year. And so this is a magazine that goes out to all of our families and has articles written to the parents and high school kids. And then there's even like activities where, all kinds of fun stuff. So we've got a magazine that's going out. We have the education wing of our department that helps that they can get resources for helping with their families for doing education on the field. Again, a lot of homeschooling, which takes a lot of support. We're also building a community for the parents. So we use MS Teams for a lot of our communication. And so we're building within the org a team specifically for our parents so that they can hear about our updates, but also can communicate and have community together as parents. And then for care, we're doing things like when they come on home assignment, we send care packages with branded gifts for the kids, and just, again, helping to build that relationship and connection. So just a lot of things. And we still feel at this stage like we're just getting off the ground. When I think about this program, I think of it as like a building that now has a foundation poured and maybe some walls, but we still have a long ways to go in the development. So it's really exciting to see this getting off the ground and the families getting excited and the MKs getting excited. It's been fun to be a part of. So I wanted to put this up. You can check out, we've got our email, our website there. And then we also have, you can follow us on our Facebook page. So that's kind of our public facing where we can share what's going on. And we also have an Instagram for that. So yeah, that's where we're at with our program. It's really exciting. It's a lot, and we really need more people. There's a couple of people on the radar, but we're really excited for what God's doing. And we felt for a while, we knew building this that we needed more people, but I think the thing that keeps coming to my mind is the field of dreams, right? Like you build it and they will come. And so we just have felt at peace that that's where the Lord has us, where he's made it very clear that this was where we were supposed to go and build this, and that the people needed for this heart, to be able to pull this off, God will provide that. So we're ready for that and ready for people to be joining. So be praying for us in that we could really use people to join the team. We just want to say that all of this, these programs, the detail, the podcast, all that, it's all with the goal, like if we go back to the beginning, to see people who have never had a chance to hear the gospel transformed by Jesus. the trail mates and all that. That's great, but it has a purpose, and it all is there for a reason, so that our families can be healthy and can be doing what God has prepared them to do. The reality is these people, these families that God has put on the field, they're often the only ones in the world, in history, who have learned this language and know the gospel. And it took them years to get to that stage, and financial, it's crazy. It's a huge investment, and it's God's, he does it. But we want to be doing what we can to keep those families healthy and on the field, because if they come home, if their kids struggling in the US, and that's what's happening, we want them to come home. But if that's something that can be addressed and helped, we want that family to be healthy so the gospel can continue to go out, because that's what we're called to. And lastly, I just wanted to mention here, engaging with us. And again, the Great Commission, it's your neighbor and it's those on the field. So it's not that everyone needs to go over to some tribe in the world. However, we also do need to do that as the church. And so that's what it's all many parts. Yes. Our hope is that 3 things. 1, we can get people to engage with the unreached in some way, whether it's to go, literally some of us may be able to go, or it can get behind others that are going. So that's one thing, is to be engaged with this in some way. And so we're really grateful to get to do that. Number 2 is we could use prayer. We can't do this without prayer. And so we could use your prayer. And so the second thing we ask and hope for is if you'd commit to praying for us, praying for this ministry, praying for the Great Commission
And our team members.
and our team members. And then third is it does take financial support. And so our job and our role here is to just present it. It's not to force anything. It's just to say, hey, this is our needs. And if God has put you in a position and you feel led to be a part of it, then awesome. We know that God provides for us. He pays for what he orders, and we know he's put us in this ministry. And so we rely on that. And so our goal isn't to try and persuade anyone. Our goal is just to present the needs. And when God puts it in front of people that they're in position to be a part of it, then God would do that. So Ethnos 360 missionaries like us are not salaried or responsible for all their living expenses and benefits and ministry costs. So that's all what our support raising goes towards. And it's so we are so grateful. Our partnership team is all over the country, and including Victoria here from Canada. So we've got partners all over the country, which it blows my mind every time I see this, because this was such a Mount Everest to happen, and to see God do this and see this map. I'm just like, wow. We've got 3 churches that are a part of we are supporting churches. We have one up in the Bay Area, and we have one down in Southern California, and then we have one here in Colorado. So we're really super grateful for what God has already done, and we know he will sustain us. And then if anyone is interested in hearing more, engaging, praying, partnering, we would love to meet with you guys. And so just reach out to us in any way. We're willing to come meet you and share. So just wanted to put that out there. If there was any interest, we are more than willing and excited to connect with you. And lastly is just connection. We believe that it's our responsibility, and we take it seriously, that we should be communicating well with our partners. And so here are 5 ways we do it. And sometimes we do more than that, but we do a monthly update. We send it out with MailChimp. And so we know sometimes those end up in junk mail. So if you haven't received it in a long time, that could be why. Just let us know. We'd love to try and get that ironed out for you, because we would love to keep you updated on what's going on. We have a Facebook private group. It just gives us a place to share where it's not just blasted all over the world, so it's just more just between us and our partners. So that Facebook group is there available, and we share, like when we go on trips and when we're doing events, we share on that. 3 is our website. We try and keep that full of information that you can check out and keep up to date. 4 is when we do our updates, that comes out as well as a podcast. So you can, on iTunes or on Spotify, you can follow that, our podcast show, if you will. And so that automatically our updates will come right in. If you are a podcaster like I am, it comes right in. You don't even have to go look for it. It comes right to you. And then 5, we like to do direct contacts. We love to send things every couple times a year just to show our appreciation and just have connection. Because the truth is, one, we want to share with you, but we also want to hear how you're doing and how we can be praying for you. This partnership, we don't want it to be one way. We want to know how we can be praying and supporting you as well. So we really mean that. So we ask, send us your prayer requests, send us things that we can be helping you with and supporting you with, because we are partners and we want it to be 2 ways.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, Pete and Bree, you guys are doing fantastic work, and super proud of you guys, and we pray for you often, and we love you, and just keep it up. Just keep going. You're doing great.
Thank you. And for the record, Josh was there when I gave my life to Christ. So this is your fruit, bro.
You're good, man.
Nice.
Well, we appreciate all of you.
All right. Love you. Have a blessed
Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Have a good night.
You too.